Welcome, everybody. This is the Bench Sheet Podcast. I'm George Niang, and this is my co-host, Kevin Spees. And we are here today with a
legend.
A legend. Some of them call him a legend. The others call him the White Mamba. And if you're feeling froggy, you could play him one-on-one, and he could zip you. That has happened before.
Which we have to talk about because we actually have a... Go ahead. Sorry.
This is Brian Scalabrine, so appreciate you coming on.
Got it. No.
Brian Scalabrine.
Late notice.
Yeah. Well, we were late. He was on time.
No. Can you do it tomorrow? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, these people book these things in advance.
I know. I tried, but this guy is a legend, so he gets it done anyway.
Absolute legend. Brian, thank you so much for jumping on with us. We actually have a common friend, almost like we're Eskimo brothers, but with basketball, because you play with him too. Jimmy Marshall.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Buckets.
I believe you gave him buckets.
Did you hear the story?
He told me that he was hungover and he made up excuses. Can you give me the real story of what happened?
I'll tell you what happened.
This kid's a hooper.
No, Jimmy Buckets he's a legend here, at least in the like the pro-am game.
Yeah.
So we play pickup 4-on-4, half court, and I just go for the run, right?
Yeah.
Like move the ball, having fun. I'm competitive, but I'm not going to give you that. To play in the NBA, you got to have like a demon side, right? You got to be a little bit that
like
dark
crazy.
side.
Yeah.
You got to have like him in Game 6, right? I don't know what you were doing last year in Philly, right? Yeah. That side, that's a real side. So I don't want to be that guy anymore. Actually, every time I'm that guy, I end up getting hurt. Like I pull a hammy, my back, like every time.
Wake up sore.
So Jimmy Buckets, he one day just texted in a group chat. Oh man, let's play one-on-one. If I win, you got to give me Scal's vodka lemonade. I got to give him a whole case. Damn. But if you win, you got to pump out. If he wins, I got to pump out all his social media stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about pumping out the social media, but I was just being really, polite and saying, like, listen, if I don't want you to win, you're not going to win. Like, I'm sorry.
Simple as that.
There's just different levels to this, right?
He's a Division I hooper, too. So
Jimmy Bucket's a good player, right? And so one thing led to another. He started going at me, and I don't want to be that guy, but I turned into that guy. And I walked in, and I told him what I was going to do to him in front of everybody, and then I did it, and then I told him what I did after it.
Cold-blooded.
It was
cold-blooded.
And then the funniest thing about that, is like 2 weeks before, I brought my son, who was like, at the time he was like 5, and my son. Like Jimmy gave me work in the 4-on-4. He gave me work
because you're just trying to get cardio.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get hurt. I'm trying to get cardio. I'm trying to have fun. I like the camaraderie, right? Yeah. It's all good. And so my son was in the hallway. He came right by me. He was like, "Jimmy Buckets, like that, right?" So I go, enough of that, right? So, anyways, all that with the thing and all those things that happened. Yeah, I gave him work, and we moved on from that. And then I said, "Rough day for you." And then somehow, some way, Jimmy Buckets sent me on a text, him dancing with like 4 girls in a bikini on a yacht that same day. So I was like, you know what?
What a flex.
I'm not even going to compete with that.
Yeah. No, it's like if a NBA team, if you don't make the playoffs, it's like we're all stuck in playoff mode and they're sending videos of them on a yacht, bikini. Yeah.
Playing golf.
It's the temptation. You got to stay away from it.
That's hilarious. Well, what a great story. I have no stories like that because I'm trash. But we do have a Friday morning run with Jimmy Buckets, and he comes and gives buckets.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like his game, but you don't want to upset the beast.
Speaking of, let's get from the beginning. So you're from Washington.
Well, born in Long Beach, California, and then moved up when I was 12 years old, like just moved up to middle of the sticks.
Oh, that must have fucking hurt, huh? You going from the sun in Long Beach to fucking the sticks in Washington?
Yeah, I mean,
gray skies.
But it worked out for me because of like the Seattle basketball scene is a good scene,
tough, right?
It's I think it's the one thing I can describe it as is very inclusive, where like everyone had each other's back, from Doug Christie to Michael Dickerson to Jason Terry to Jamal Crawford. Like everyone is taking care of the younger people, and I don't get the opportunity or make it if it's not for that. And I'm sure you came across somebody in your life that made a big difference, but over there's a lot of guys. Like even I should have mentioned Brandon Roy as well. Like there's a lot of guys, bringing young people along. And it really helped me. Like I'm not in an NBA or make the NBA or none of those things if it's not for those guys.
Were they just kind of like schooling you on things, or were you like open? Were you
environment, environment, great environment. Music rocking. playing pickup.
Yeah.
Getting your ass kicked. Like that's really what it was.
Yeah, I feel like that's an underrated thing in the summer is that's what gives you confidence. I don't know when or where you were playing against them, but when you're going to get up against real like NBA talent and talented guys, and then you go back to playing with like your regular crew, you're like, I'm fearless because I've done this before. And that usually happens in the summers. I mean, you're listing off Jamal Crawford, Brandon Roy, like some of the best like one-on-one players to do it. So yes, of course you're going to get your ass bust, but when you probably went back to USC, it was probably like,
you realize the level that those guys play at, or the size. In the NBA, right? Like when I was in college, I went against Michael Wright at Arizona, Mark Madsen at Stanford, and I felt like I was like running up against a wall. Like them dudes weren't moving, right? And then about 2 weeks of playing in the NBA, I went up against Michael Wright again, and it was like he's just like everybody else. But you don't face that enough in college. Just like you don't face that enough when you're playing with your friends. You have to seek out. You got to seek out that ass whooping. That's just what it is. And I think a lot of people are afraid of doing that. People are afraid of their brand and this and that. Like back in the day, you got your ass busted, and that's how you got better. That's it.
And you wonder how much and I'm curious to hear your take on like the AAU scene too, because you're obviously in it with White Mamba Elite.
Shout out all them White Mambas out there. I know I would have been the star on that team.
Would you
wearing 24, 44, every single one of Scal's number, just representing on that line.
You would like playing on my team. We're an anomaly. We're an AAU team that moves the ball.
Hey, no, do him, do him.
No, not only that, but when we were playing this team from Jersey, no disrespect, right? Yeah. They were playing one-on-one. They're like, my guys on the bench like, how do these guys think they're going to win like that? I'm in the AAUC. I know it's lightning in a bottle. It has nothing to do with me. I'm telling you, it has nothing to do with me. My guys just move the ball, but that's true.
I forgot what my question was going to be. Something about AAU, but
no, but it's like young kids. I think what we were just talking about, like young kids don't necessarily go out and play older guys, and they don't seek out. They just play AAU. They go to practice and they go home. It's like you got to do more than that if you really want to make it. Like you got to be a savage when you play, but you also got to be a savage seeking out those runs.
And I think a thing uniquely that's with you is like you've had a 10+ NBA career, and you were drafted in the second round, which is almost even harder to make it in the NBA back then, because now there's like 3 more spots with the 2 ways where you can be like, oh, you don't really have to beat out an older guy. When you were on there, it was like 12 guys were active, 3 or 13 guys were active, 2 guys were inactive, and you weren't really given an opportunity unless you were like a first-round pick, and you were able to squeeze it to a 10-year career. Just more or less speak to how you were able to do that, be a professional and be skillful, but also stick around for 10+ years.
So 3 things. I could tell you, especially that era. I'm in and out of the NBA if these 3 things don't happen. 1, I'm 23 years old, right? Yeah. Going to the league. 2, Jason Kidd gets traded to the Nets. 3, they ran Princeton offense. And so when you look at those 3
perfect things for a 6'10" white guy, huh?
Dribble a hand off, pop,
You're smart, you're shooting, you look the part.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So those 3 things happened, and, that kind of gave me that opportunity. Jason Kidd was instrumental in my life because, he took me under his wing in a good way. Like if I made a mistake, he cut me with those eyes. Like he'd look at me and you blankety blank, don't ever do that again. And that was good. Like I responded to that, and over time we got close, and when you have Jason Kidd looking out for you on the basketball court, that's a great thing. And I knew if that shot goes up and I'm not getting the rebound, just be out. Georges would tell you, if you're a 3-point shooter, but what if someone got you 2 layups every game? How much easier to knock down 3s?
You just build
than just sitting there waiting for that thing to come. You're like, man, I hope they throw it to me. But I just ran the floor every single time, and eventually, if I got one, then it took so much pressure off of the other stuff. That's a lot.
For sure. I mean, when you get to see the orange thing go in the orange thing before you really have to take a pressure shot, you're like, man, I feel like Kobe Bryant as compared to George Niang coming off the bench.
And correct me wrong, you went a JUCO route, right? So what was the recruiting process? I mean, you're obviously coming from heavy basketball area, but What was that like?
Yeah, no scholarship. I got to have scholarship to a D2 school, and like I just bet on myself. Like what I was like, my parents. What happened was this: like in the 8th grade, this is like kind of hard to imagine, right? In the 8th grade, I was cut from the team, right? Like the 8th grade local team. In the 9th grade, like I was a bona fide asshole. So I'm not going to sit there and like.
Well, we believe that.
Like I'm not going to blame the coaches. I'm not doing that. You guys don't know what you're doing, but like, like. To play in the league, you got to be psycho, right? You have to, and you have to learn how to control it. And a lot of times when you're young, you can't control that.
Yeah.
Like if your brain is not designed to be like that competitive, like
emotional.
Yeah,
you get to that point and nobody can like snap you back. You get to the point it's end all be.
You're
right.
To me at the Lifetime Fitness on Saturday mornings. So, I
playing high school kids. Look at this guy.
But so then as you get older, you learn how to control that. You use that fire to develop and get better. And you like I tell kids all the time, like every game I play, it's like, it's life or death for me, right? Yeah. That's just how I'm wired that way. So you can lose control at a young age, but then you start to figure it out. And so cut from 8th grade, barely played in 9th grade, JV, 10th grade, like kind of 10 points a game, 11th grade. And that was when, I went to play AAU and went to the workouts and all that stuff just changed. And like from that moment on, it was like already too late. And so went to junior college, played 1 year, sat out a year, learned a lot, won a championship there and played with, this. And I don't know, this is a big thing. This is a big moment. Go to junior college. In my town, I can take the ball, I can drop the ball. They can swipe at it. I'm getting the layup. I'm just going to go right through you. You go to the inner city. Whap, whap.
You ever heard of ping pong with basketballs?
You drop the ball. Your hands are, your arms are raked. I mean, my arms were raked. And I looked at my hands like, I can't drop the ball anymore, right? Yeah. So it's just a totally different game, and I was able to adapt to that. And I think one thing about NBA players that people don't understand is, like when in the league, they tell you to do something one time, you better pick it up. Like if you make a mistake, you better learn. If a guy scores on you, you better not let that happen again. Like you have that. It's a fast learning, learning curve, right? You can't. Like I know they always say like you got to be patient, but normally you're around guys that they usually just pick things up quickly and you just move on. If not, guys don't really like kind of last in the league.
And that's why there's only 450 of them. And like I remember, my first time in being in the league, I was like, I was drafted 50th, which now I realize is not shit. Yeah. And you're like, they're going to give me my opportunity. No, like you talked about, being patient, but you got to be patiently relentless. Like, yes, you have to sit on the bench and wait for your time. But when you get in there, it's like you're a caged fucking animal. For sure. And you got to get out there and go see what someone in front of you isn't doing and do that. So the coach actually has to make like a tough decision. Cause a lot of these guys are like, I was always catered to, especially now. Like they always gave me an opportunity. I had the ball. It's like, no, show me what you could do without having the ball. Go get an offensive rebound. Go get us an extra possession. And then you'll get more minutes. And by then you'll maybe get a play for you. And a lot of guys don't realize that. They think just, I should get it right away. And if you're not patiently relentless, then you'll never succeed.
Yeah, you got to buy minutes. Like you get in the game, let's say your rotation is going to be 3 minutes. If you make a shot, it's 4. You get a rebound, it's 4:30. You get a big stop, it could be 5. Like you're buying minutes with your play. There's no like gifting any minutes. No. When you're like me, I think there's other people out there, they were gifted minutes. But for me, so, you got to, here's another one that I would do, right? Jason Kidd. Ball would go through the net. I'd take that bitch out quick, right? And then somehow we got a layup. And my coaches recognized that. So they would, that bought me another possession, another 20 seconds, right? Yeah. So it's just, you're just constantly like just kind of buying minutes, buying yourself a little bit more time. And with that, you can get an opportunity. And finally, you get to the point where if a guy's hurt, they're going to start you. You get a chance to play, but starters are going to play 20 minutes a night. Yeah. But outside of that, you're like buying your minutes along the way. Or even if you're a rotation player, you're buying, which maybe you bought a lot of minutes in that game 6. Maybe they should have left you in there.
No,
I was happy when they took you out of the game.
Oh my God. No, but the funny thing about that is like, and you honestly have to be strategic about it. Like when we were in Philly and we traded for James Harden, the guy that I like work out with, like sent me clips of PJ Tucker and how he always like ran up in the backcourt to set like back screens so James could start getting downhill.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, without even knowing James, if I get out on the court with him, this is like what I'm going to do, because everybody knows James likes to play in space, right? And if I could give him space, and I'm usually having the worst defender on me, and what are they doing? Going to send 2 people at James, and who's wide open? Me. So it was almost like a happy marriage when you talk about like you and Jason Kidd. Like I knew I was going to get the ball, and the same thing with, you know, James. If I could set a screen and get him some space and send another defender on there, and next thing you know, you make 2 threes, and it's real tough for the coach to be I got to get him out of there.
For sure.
So you almost have to be strategic on like your approach. Like if I went out there and ran to the corner, James would be like, well, fucking everybody's still in the way and this guy's in the corner, like come do something for me. And when you build that rapport with someone, like when you immediately said Jason Kidd, I was like, fuck, that was true, you know, in the nets. And like when you have a point guard that can get you the ball, but you also make life easier for him and get him assists, it's like they're like, no, like keep him on the court.
It's funny because this is my exact role in my men's league. I'm the fat guy in the corner. So as long as I'm creating space for Brian Hurley, I know they won't take me out the last 5 minutes of the game. So I can totally relate.
Can you make a shot?
I can knock it down.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
all right.
But I'm unathletic and 25 pounds overweight. So and I'm also bald. So it's like
if you can shoot, it doesn't matter.
It really does. It really does.
How much of like your knowledge of all this? And I'm speaking to more so these, like, I wouldn't call them intangibles, but behind the scene things inform your like coaching decisions. Like when you're like, are you seeing things that other coaches aren't really seeing with like the 8th kid on the bench?
So guy's on TV, he's not fucking making coaching decisions.
Hey man, my AAU team
out there,
No, you know what I do? I have a strategy that I use, and it's just I look at my players and I say like, well, this guy likes to drive left, and this guy likes to drive right, or this guy likes to post up on this block. So when I draw stuff up after the timeout, I just draw to my player's strength. So I got a left-handed player. He's good at like going through contact. So I'll do some false action on the left-hand side and bring it back to a DHO or a pitch. So and I get him to his left hand. Yeah. So that's like things like that. And those are the decisions that I'm making. But I mean, more than anything, it's like you have to spend a lot of time coaching defense and angles and two-way stunts. Like you can't two-way stunt in the NBA. If you do, you'll get smoked. But you do it. If I could teach those, they have no idea. Like the ball is driven, they'll turn their back. Man, you're getting cooked if you do that, right? But opening up. So I'm giving them like tips like that. But I have a really good coach that understands youth sports better than I do. Yeah, I understand that level. There's a big gap in between the two, and even if I taught him everything I know, there's still a lot of things about youth sports that I don't know.
Yeah, there's more broad strokes. I feel like from an NBA level, like if I'm talking and it could be like basketball for dummies, I'm going to say a pin down, and then it's like someone's like, well, what the F is a pin down?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And you're speaking in that broad language where it's like you almost need to break it down. No, when your man goes to set a screen on this defender, like this is called a pin down. Yeah. Whereas like from an NBA lingo, you're talking that as if you know, and I'm going to take it back to when he's talking about on film where they're in the NBA, they'll be like, yeah, we're going to gap this, and then we're going to X out on this. And I remember my first time I got into a game, it was in Orlando, it was preseason, and Paul George it's a ball screen, right? And Paul George is the tag man, and I'm the low man, the guy that's under the hoop, and the tag man is supposedly supposed to stop the guy from rolling. Then the next player would concede him, right? But if the ball gets swung to the corner, they call that Xing out. So he's yelling at me like, George, you're X, you're X, you're X. Yeah. And in my mind, meaning it's preseason. Yeah, I'm going to take the first pass out. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck is X? And thank God the dude ended up, shooting it. I think it was like Nikola Vucevic or something. And I was like, he was like, you get what I mean on that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, you don't. But if you're the first pass out, so if they kick it out, just get over there. So you talk about broad strokes. Yeah, that's tough in youth sports. But
and also, you're not teaching a third level of defense, even to like good high school teams, really.
No.
Just not like the ball doesn't.
The lingo is the biggest thing.
Lingo is totally
like if you go
even in college, like these dudes don't know shit.
The lingo.
No offense, I'm sorry. You guys do know a lot. You're great players. Idiots. Let me keep my job for like 6 more years.
Like if you said, all right, you know what, take this rip screen and go into a DHO, a lot of people would be like, what? Yeah. So it's like the lingo is like that's the the disconnect between them. They might not know any of those things.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So you were, from what I've heard, you were gonna go take a job with the Warriors, right?
I took one.
You were.
I was the assistant coach there. Yeah,
yeah, for a year. A year, right?
Yep.
Now, what made you want to get into television? And
all right, so I did. So here's what happened.
was it like, I don't fuck with this?
No,
people don't I'm going to tell you this before he gets into his answer. People don't understand all the stuff that goes into coaching on the court and then off the court and massaging personalities so that it all works. And a lot of that sometimes falls on the assistant coaches.
I'll give you. This will all make sense to you. Hopefully, it's not too detailed of a story. So I covered as soon as I lost to the Chicago Bulls. I mean, I'm on the Bulls. We lose to Philly. Derrick Rose tears his ACL.
Yeah.
We were going to play Boston. So I had like a bunch of stuff lined up here.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I had all this stuff. I was this, that. I was going to do all these things, see my friends, whatever. I was like, you know what? Let me call NBC and say, I'll cover your series if you guys want to fly me in, right? Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is great. I'll cover the series and I'll also be able to do all the stuff I wanted to do, right, during the playoffs. So they're like, sure, yeah, definitely. Like, we lost to Philly, so Philly's playing Boston. Yeah. I know everything about both teams. Let me cover a series. So I do that. I go all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose to Miami. At that point, I'm not sure I want to do this, but I kind of feel like I'm not going to make the NBA the following year. But there's some things overseas. I was really interested in doing that. Finally, I was like, you know what? Let me just do the TV gig. Right. You know, I'm cool. I got enough money. I'm not chasing my ego anymore, which was not an easy decision.
No,
I'm making it sound like it's an easy decision. It was a tough decision.
You're fighting real demons.
But but you know what? You're like, man, 11 years. It's, all that time that you're not going to say none of that, and you're not going to appreciate everything that you've done and where you're at. As but when you're like 2 or 3 years out, you'll start to appreciate it, right? Because right now you're like in the fight. Like you can't even
turn that switch off. Yeah,
you can't even like talk to the 10-year-old Georges Niang and be like, "Yo, man, your life is incredible, right?" Yeah, you can't have that conversation right now, but you will later.
Yeah.
So that year, the following year, I covered the Celtics. I do all that. And, I know my agent is Bob Myers growing up. Like Bob goes and takes over. Like, I love Bob, right? So Bob is like always in my ear, like, do you like your job? I'm like, yeah, I love my job. Like, is it fulfilling to you? And he kept calling me, like every month he would call me because he's just starting out with the Warriors. Yeah. They weren't very good. They're starting to get good. Steph Curry's starting to become Steph Curry.
Is Mark Jackson the coach?
Yeah, Mark Jackson's the coach, and they're starting to trend like wait. So I watched them against the San Antonio Spurs that year. And when I'm watching them, I'm like, dude, this team's going to win a championship, man. Yeah. Like, they have things that I've never seen before. And this was 2 years before they won a championship. They have things I've never seen before. They have shot blocking with Bogut. Like, this Steph Curry and Klay Thompson thing is like different.
This is changing the game.
This is before that.
Shooting threes was cool.
Yeah, it was it wasn't what it is, I'm watching it and I'm like, you know what? Let me go chase that. Let me chase that ring as a coach. I don't know if I want to be an NBA coach. I think I would like to be a college coach, but I think this would be a good stepping stone. Go there, win a championship, and then go coach wherever, USC, Pac-12, whatever it is, right? So I went there, and right away, man, I just knew that I didn't want to do it. I just knew. Really? I could just tell, it was. I love the players. But it's like I was a terrible coach, a terrible father, and a terrible husband. Like, I couldn't be good at any of them, right? Because it was so much time and so much attention. And I had a meeting in November. I started the season September, October, November. I've already had a meeting with NBC, and I was like, I'm going to come back next year. So it just wasn't for me. Yeah, I don't like it. I like to carve out my own space and time, and I have my serious show in the morning. I got the games at night. In the middle of the day, it's my life. When you're a coach, you're 18 hours. You're on the clock for everybody else. It's tough.
Yeah, at every level, I think it's crazy. And varying degrees of that. And I can imagine it being super draining. And if you don't absolutely love it, then it's like, what are we doing here? Yeah. It's like, if it's not an absolute passion, it's like, it's not worth it, like you said.
Yeah, well, with that being said, with the gig that you have now, you're allowed to form your own opinions. And Sorry, there's someone here that wrote George stinks, but that's fine.
No, he just drew a dick on it. It didn't even have any veins on it, dude. Draw a dick right,
but
loser. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, so here we go. You're allowed to form your own opinions, and with your opinions, what are your thoughts on obviously there's the Eastern Conference playoffs going on.
Your series?
No, I don't want to talk. We're not going to talk about that. But we're going to.
Pat McAfee was like,
"Good.
Did you guys know there was a Game 7 last night?
Yeah.
Like, apparently Cleveland beat."
But what is your thoughts on the overall playoffs? We'll start in the Western Conference. Luka versus Shea in the West, along with Denver having their struggles with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I never thought the Timberwolves were ever going to work, so I'd love to hear your thought process.
But when you saw them this year, at what time did you think they were going to work? I thought they were going to work.
Yeah, early before
Christmas. I thought. You know why? Because they got Jaden motherfucking McDaniels, and that dude is the most underrated defender of all time. Like this dude it's like Scottie Pippen back in the day. So I didn't know they were going to beat Denver. I picked Denver to beat them, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I've always liked Minnesota a lot this year because not because of Karl Anthony Towns. I like Naz Reid. I like Jaden McDaniels. Obviously, everyone loves Anthony Edwards, but Nicole Alexander-Walker, like these guys are good, man.
They got real ballers. Yeah.
So I was surprised by that. I picked Denver. I thought that Dallas's size would be a problem for Oklahoma City. We're just past game 1, so we'll see if that happens. But when I look at Chet, I think of him as a 4, not a 5.
And he was holding it down against Jonas Valanciunas last year. I was like, I thought he was going to get killed.
That's what I thought too. I thought in the playoffs it gets different, but he's done really well. They got that drive and kick game, so that is. Yeah. They move it, they drive it, they lead the league in drives, lead the league in scoring off drive, lead the league in threes off drives. Like they if you are not going to defend them at a high clip,
they will punish you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then obviously I think the Knicks are the better basketball team, but I don't know if Thibodeau can play six guys against the Pacers.
Yeah.
If he play against like a team that walks it up, maybe, but I don't know. Like Indiana seems to like just
they play 10 guys and they just run.
Correct. Fucking go. And just watching the game, it was like it's like every position is relentless. It's like Tyrese goes down, sits on the bench, and you have fucking TJ McConnell, who's just a gnat, in your face constantly.
You talk about sick, twisted mindset.
Oh, yeah.
He picks someone up full court.
He's a savage, man.
And the crazy part is, like, people say, like, he can't shoot, and then he, like, just wills shots.
I know. I know.
And scores.
He's a real savage.
And then, 20 in the of course, like, the homer this guy is, the Cavaliers are playing the Celtics, so I'm sure, let's get your thoughts.
I got to play you.
Amen, bro. Put my
this guy is funny, but
I sent him a stat today. I'm going to read my stat. You can't drop your own stat. I sent him a stat today. So when you look at it, since the 2020-2021 season, right? I'm going to name some guys. We have Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday. I guess that would be Mikal Bridges, Bobby Portis, Rudy Gobert, and Devin Booker. All those guys got less wins than Georges Niang.
Yes, dude.
Georges Niang leads the NBA in wins since the 2020-21 season.
Wow, that's a crazy stat. What's your Venmo? I'll hit you. I appreciate that. You bring guys on the Bench Seat podcast and they shout you out. How narcissistic am I? Yeah.
I have a graph and everything. Look at that.
The winningest player in the decade of in the 2020s.
In the 20s is,
and like people could and I've said this to you before, and you're like, oh, I've played with good teams, and it's like, sure. But I think there's something to be said about like I always go back to the conversation you had with Tobias Harris. He's like, dude, there's not many people in the league that can take as many shots as you do and score as many points as you do. Meaning, like, you only get a fucking couple of shots a game and you're scoring 9 a game.
That
not
one
a lot of
day
people
that you
can do
didn't miss, I don't understand why you didn't keep shooting. I don't understand. Like, on a day like that, I don't understand why.
You went yesterday and got buckets in those.
I made a personal choice that I wasn't going to pass yesterday. But no, I think at the end of the day, it's you try and find the fine line of playing the right way. And if some guys aren't passing, you're like, I don't want to add to that and think that, everybody can just not pass.
For sure.
But there are times where, I go back and look at film and I'm like, fuck that dude. I should have just I should have just shot that. And that's me selfishly being all about me. And I think one thing that, doesn't go unnoticed, especially with winning players. And, you've been in the league a long time and been on winning teams and a championship team, is that guys really couldn't give a shit about their stuff and were more or less, well, how can I help the person? How can I get the next person next to me across the finish line? I think, that can be said about a lot of the teams that you're on, especially the championship one, where, yes, there are guys that we know they're going to be slaughtered with a certain amount of shots, minutes, but they were also looking out, either for guys like you, because I remember growing up, and even if you weren't fucking playing a bunch of minutes, fucking you got in there and banged home a three. Yeah. One, the crowd was going crazy. And fucking your teammates were fucking swinging towels and fucking going nuts.
Another guy just put his wiener against the window. We got to do something.
We got to be done with the wiener talk. We got to have a sign that says,
don't put your wiener up against the thing.
No, I can tell you why that is the case. One, you are on good teams, but two, you'd be surprised on how little guys know how to space and where to be on the floor. It's like even an angle of where to or when to set a screen or whatever those little things are. So many guys don't actually know that. So there's my stat for you. Good job.
Yeah. Congrats.
Anyway, going back to this series.
Yeah.
It feels like you guys need more size. Maybe you get Jared Allen back, but if the only way you're going to beat the Celtics is you have to make more than 23s. There's no other way. So that's why I said it tongue in cheek, like they got to play you because I'm on your pod or whatever. But
he really doesn't fucking believe that.
No, I do believe that.
Yeah, he does.
What is your best chance of making 23s? That's how you got to look at it.
Like I looked at that team from last year for what happened with the Knicks series, right? And then what the moves they made in the offseason, I was like, oh, they just want to surround this team with shooters.
I agree.
I was like, oh, they got so much better.
That's what I thought.
And then it's like that game against the Magic. It's like you took 17 threes. It's like you never took 17 threes. You got to fucking get these shots up.
So
it's easier.
What do we think about who's going to be the team that's going to win it all?
I think it'll be the Celtics or whoever wins Minnesota, Denver.
Yeah.
But with Boston, they just have to figure out a way to have good balance of
stay healthy.
Well, stay healthy, of course, but the paint and the threes got to have balance of that.
Yeah.
When we're at our best, we're right around the middle of that. We're not pulling up. We're jumpers. We're not overly shooting the three. We're not taking too many paint touches. But watching Minnesota lately, that is, if you look at the way that they guard, like in your space and trying to speed you up, that has been something that the Celtics have struggled with, especially if they have a shot blocker like Gobert behind.
And they have those 2 7-footers down there.
Yeah, and but to your point, like with McDaniels, their wing defenders are big too. Nasty. It's like they're fucking big everywhere.
Yeah.
And fast and aggressive. And yeah, I guess you really, in playoff basketball, it seems like defensive teams shine. And like the Wolves look scary, dude.
They do.
Like they had a stretch where it seemed like it was like watching a JV team against a varsity team. Denver was having a hard time getting a shot up. They were just.
I've never seen Jokic that shook before, but I also wouldn't bet against them.
No,
that's how good
because they'll figure it out.
Those guys are real good. But kind of getting off topic, because the NBA has kind of made crazy transitions. Like if you were around now, you would probably be of extreme high value just because of your ability to fucking shoot and be smart and being a cerebral player. And like I said,
so that's funny that you say that because I'm not. But I think I was an anomaly back then, right? I was like a power forward that
people didn't really know how to handle that. Like
it was weird.
It was like you were called the tweener, where we don't know what position he is, and now those guys are kind of like really valuable.
But there's also 8 guys on every team that can do it, and every one of them is more athletic than me. So you look at it like, your game, your style of game. But like I watch players all the time, okay, so that guy could do what I do, but he's 6'10" and fucking jumps, touches out of the square.
Yeah.
So my point is, I don't know what my life looks like if I grew up in this era. Like I didn't do individual workouts.
For sure. Yeah.
It's very different, but I would say, I think the game is in an incredible place. I think the skill level, I think the basketball IQ, I think all those things are at the highest they've ever been in the NBA right now. So I don't think I really stand out in this league.
Nah, well, he's downplaying it. Obviously, he has some skill, but more or less back to my question, talking about, more, I don't want to say like the toughness, but more or less like the stories. You hear like OGs tell stories about, like, you hear the Kevin Garnett story of when like someone went to go get food before the players were, and he literally like slapped their plate down and was like, players eat fucking first.
Wait, that's not happening now?
No.
So you're telling me,
Wait,
like,
can you explain that for people?
No, there's been numerous times. Well, the story is that Kevin Garnett was going to get food, and after games, guys ice their knees, put their feet in cold buckets, and then they do whatever they want, and then they go get food, right? Yeah. That's just kind of how the NBA kind of like rolls. And someone said, like, the story that I've heard, being a Boston kid, is that someone was going to get food that wasn't a player, like and he saw it, and they had their putting food on their plate, and he just slapped it down and was like, players eat first. And there's been numerous times, like on teams that I've been on, where they've like, yep, no more steak. What the fuck do you mean no more steak? Like, oh, everybody got to it.
And you're like
so like we're like the food. Yeah, like the cruel stuff that I've heard, like rookie hazing was like, you got to wear a pink backpack everywhere. I don't ever see pink backpacks. You got to like on like media day or something, they make the guys wear their uniforms and like run around the stadium. Like there's none of that. We're like, I'm sure you have some good stories, because you were like in the meat of it, where there was like only like flip phones. The iPhone wasn't really that big.
All right, so Garnett is never demeaning to any players ever.
Right. Yeah.
Even though everyone thinks he made Big Baby cry, he really didn't make Big Baby cry. That's what people thought.
There was just onions around.
No, like Garnett's the kind of guy is like, he'll go up to Big Baby like, man, we need you, man. You got to keep it together. Like, we need you out there. We need you. We can't win without you. Like, he's like saying that. And then Big Baby started crying. That's not Garnett making him cry. He's trying to help him, you know?
Yeah.
But like Garnett was great to the players, but the team doctor who was scooping the food. This is a team doctor.
You were here for this.
Yeah, it's a team. Like, this guy like does surgery on all of our bodies. Like, we got to need this guy's going to do it. He said, give me, you can't eat.
Yeah. No, not today.
You can't eat. That's a savage move, man.
Here's like, did the doctor then get food after the play? Like,
no, he was shook.
He just shook. He was shook.
I'm going to hear this guy. Did the doctor get food after? That doctor probably drove home and was like, I'm going to stop at McDonald's. I'm never going to eat food in the team room ever fucking again.
There was also Sam Cassell, bona fide asshole, right? Bona fide, but great guy now.
Yes, 2 S's, 2 L's, my guy.
But great guy now. Great guy. But he was great to the players, but this is what happened. He told one of the coaches, like lower level intern coach, film, whatever. He's like, you scared a ticket. You scared a ticket. And he's like, man, I'm not scared of ticket. Just like they're playing. We're in the back. Well, I ain't scared of ticket. You scared of ticket. You scared of ticket. If you ain't scared of ticket, then go grab some food. And he recorded it.
This guy going to get food?
Yeah.
Oh,
and he's got to smack that. He
did. Again? Then he goes, yo, ticket, check it out. And he showed like ticket, the guy getting food. And he was like, man, I ain't scared of ticket, as he goes and gets food. So there was stuff like that. But as far as a teammate that cares about his players, nobody better. Nobody. We went to Rome, and he just got here. He bought suits for everybody on the team. I mean, the 19th man got suits, like everybody on the team.
And that's like the difference where, like, you need, I feel like the NBA is going younger, but you still need those older guys around to keep that, camaraderie, to how guys need to act. And a lot of money is thrown at guys, and different things happen. And you kind of need those older guys around to show you what's what and how to do different things. Like, Al Jefferson was my vet, and I'll never forget that, on every game day, he made me go and get him Jimmy John's chips and 2 bottles of water. It's just like one of those things where it like humbles you, so that you're not walking around with a bag of money thinking you are who you are. And
also, like, you for everybody in the NBA that's they're probably sitting for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
So like, I'm sure for a lot of people, there are some humbling moments. Even were you Pac-10 Player of the Year? Or you were up there, right?
Yeah, second, whatever.
Yeah,
second.
and it's like that's the highest basketball you can play. What'd you say?
I mean, I was behind Buddy Hield, so I completely get it.
Yeah. I was behind Eddie House, and he had 61 in a game.
Oh, jeez.
There's no way.
Motherfucking microwave, yeah.
But I can imagine there's a lot of first-time humbling moments in the NBA, so it's probably good to like become comfortable with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you talk about humbling moments. I was lucky enough to play for some good coaches. But you mentioned Sam Cassell, and he had like a real humbling moment for me. We were in Cleveland. I was in Philly. We were playing in Cleveland, and he was like, I had been struggling. I think Kevin Love hit a jump shot on me, and then I missed a bunch of shots. And I come to the bench. He's like, George, and he puts his arm around me. He's like, let me tell you something. There's two types of players in this league: guys that make shots and guys that stop guys on the other end. And I'm thinking, and he looks over at me. He's like, I suggest you start making shots. And that just goes to the story of like what Sam is just always razzing someone, but at the end of the day, there is a little realness in there to tell you like, hey, if you do this, you'll be all right. But I'm going to tell you, don't do this.
You know who Rod Thorne is? Okay, so one day we were playing the San Antonio Spurs, right? And I was in awe of Tim Duncan and the whole thing, right? And so I did nothing in the game. I just got the ball. I got it. I just reversed that shit, right? I drove, I jump stopped, I kicked it out, right? So we lose to the Spurs by whatever, right? And he's right. I didn't do anything. Yeah. So I get on the bus. He's like, Scal, let me tell you, I can get a lot of motherfuckers that do nothing. You got to do something. So do something, or pretty soon you'll be doing nothing. This guy's the president of the team, right? Next night I had 18.
Yeah. It's that little motivation. You got to poke the bear a little bit.
Sometimes it's like that's the best kind because it does make you laugh and it's like funny, but you're also getting the message.
No, that's the real message.
Yeah,
like I'm about to get cut.
Loud and clear, motherfucker. Yeah,
no, that is completely true. And I don't.
Dude, some girl just put her wiener on the glass.
This guy needs to stop.
It's different out here.
Jesus,
you know what? That is the key for us to wrap it up here, Scal. We appreciate you coming on, and thanks for making time to come on the bench.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Absolute legend, and good luck the rest of the spring with the AAU squad. Shout to White Mamba.
Yeah, they're gonna fucking lose to BABC. I know that.
We just lost to them.
Cool.
Oh man.
That's who you.